Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it looks like lady and gentleman at the moment, just the two of you. Okay, so it's Monday night. I've tried a new intro thing, so you can actually start watching before the actual session starts. So hopefully you caught it straight away without the adverts. Oh, move the mic a little bit closer. So hopefully you caught it without the adverts, which means you saw me turning the lights on. Okay, so before we start, I've got some news, some good news. Yep, and I've just seen Darren's question, so we'll get onto that in a minute. So we've got some good news. Due to the COVID the lockdown restrictions receding, softening, we can now, or I can, if I'm running a session, I can have more than 6 people because it's my place of work and I'm teaching. So I can have more than 6 people at the lake. So starting this Wednesday, purely because we're already going there, so let's book it up. We can have up to 30 people in a session. Obviously we have social distancing, which we have to do, but and we have to obviously manage ourselves sensibly, but it does mean we're not stuck to that 6 people. I'm even thinking of running an open walk course on Sunday, ready for Free Fest, which is the following weekend. So exciting. So drop us a line if you're interested. Okay, so let's go straight in for it. So Darren's asked a really good question, and Yui's come back with, I don't even understand the question. So let's do it backwards. Let's start with Yui's question and then move in to Darren. Okay, so when you dive down, you get to the bottom, you do your thing, whether you're taking a photograph or if it's just grabbing a tag, whatever you're doing, and then you kind of go, all right, I've done that, and then you look up and you go, oh F, I'm deep, which is typically really for spearfishermen have this, because they're so fixated on the fish, because you kind of have to wait for the shot. So so fixated on the fish moving into shot that when you get the shot, doesn't matter whether you get the fish or not, you kind of, oh man, F, I'm deep. Okay, and so that's what FID. Okay, but FIDS is slightly different. You've done your dive, you've done everything cool, and you start pulling your way up, and you just kind of go, hang on a sec, I haven't seen my safety diver yet, and you look up and you go, oh F, I'm deep still. Okay, and that's FIDS. So you have FID and FIDS. Okay, so that's answering his question. So Darren's question is a good question, and there's 3 answers. There's always 3 answers. Let's start with the first one. I've already kind of answered the first one. Is if you get distracted when you're at the bottom, then when the spell's broken, as it were, bam, you're back in the dive. That's when you realise you're deep. So it's a distraction thing. So if you really want to avoid those kind of all-enveloping distractions, such as spearfishing, where you're lining up the shot. Obviously, I'm not saying don't go spearfishing. What I'm saying is awareness on yourself. So always have a check. Am I okay? Okay, let's look at this fish. Am I okay? Okay, let's look at this fish. And it's the same with photography. Slightly less because you're not really waiting. I mean, suppose you could be waiting for the fish to get into shot. So it's a matter of keep checking, self-checking all the time. Keep going back, check, am I okay, and then you're not going to get the fid, because you're like, okay, I've finished now, I'm going, and you go back and you're aware of where you are. So that's the first answer. The second answer is practice time in water. Same old adage as we come back to quite often. So you are aware of how deep you are. You're aware of how long it takes to get back from that depth, because you've done it before. And if you progress in a sensible way, and you're only changing one thing, other people will say, progressing 1 meter at a time, but that really is like a depth kind of orientated training. We're saying change one thing at a time. So you may, change your pull down, might change your glide, might stereo fin as opposed to monofin. So you're changing one thing, or you may add a couple of meters on, or kind of glide for a bit longer, which is a much better way of thinking about kind of adding to your depth, is glide for a bit longer. If you progress like that, you're not going to get that kind of snap of, oh man, I'm deep. You may do if you're not super practiced, you haven't got that much experience, super experienced. You may find you hit the glide, everything's going well, you've been trained, especially in fact no, let's change that. If you've had a couple of months off deep diving like we have, but you've still been practicing in the park, still been doing your dry exercises, still been doing your bedtime stretches, so everything has come together on this dive. Your chin's tucked in, shoulders relaxed, and you are gliding like super smooth. You may kind of be, oh, this is easy, stop, and then go, oh, F, I'm deep. Right? It may happen. It's unlikely because your body knows where you are all the time. If you're listening to your body, you already know where you are. But if you do zone out or sleep a bit too much, you may get that. So, but if you've practiced, if you've experienced a lot, if you've done that depth, give or take a couple of meters, a lot, and you're super confident with it, then you're not going to get caught out by a fid. Fids is slightly more complicated, because that's on the way up. You've already made the decision to stop the dive, or rather, as somebody said to me, or in fact, as Adam de la Mare said to me, something he had picked up, that you don't stop the dive. So when you go down, you don't decide to stop the dive. All you're doing is changing the direction of the dive. So instead of going down or staying where you are, you're changing the direction, come up. So you've already made the decision to come back. So you're coming back halfway up or a certain distance. You go, yeah, I should be near the top now. You look up, oh, and you've got a long way to go. That's a little bit more complicated. And really to get over that, it is again repetition. So you find a situation, a location, possibly even a depth that you have available, and you dive it free immersion. Then you monofin it, then you stereo fin it, and then you sled it, and then you sled with a buddy. By this time, coming back, you know how many pulls it is. You know how many fin kicks it is. It's just in there. And yeah, that's the best way to train against it, to stop having it. On the second stage is if it happens when you are trained, and it could do, something could have changed at the bottom, the sled might have fallen apart, or I don't know, something's changed to the dive plan, and it suddenly kind of clicks over to a little bit longer than you expected, for sake of argument. And that the only way you can practice that is when you're training, have some sort of way of changing the dive outside your control. Yeah. So if you always practice on a bar tight straight rope, then you know the depth, and you goes down, and you have a perfect countdown, perfect breathe up with a buddy and the rope and beautiful, and you go down and you come up and you go down and you repeat that. You're limiting hugely what you're learning. So what you need to do is have exercises in your routine that kind of throw in a spanner into your training, that change things. So instead of just having it exactly the same, you don't have a breathe up one time, change your technique sometimes, so you can cope with these different kind of things, exactly like we do in the pool session. And I've been talking on the club sessions, although apparently I can't hear the words very well, the speaking in the park, but I'm going to change that this week. So as I've been saying in the club sessions, that yes, you can do a breath hold walk. You do it to a point and back. You can do that. That's fine. That's good. That's practice. But what's even better is to do that with a variable you can't control, like somebody throwing you a frisbee. Yeah. So you can do the distance, but can you do the distance when somebody's throwing you a frisbee and it goes the wrong way, and you have to bend down and pick it up, or you have to wait for them to pick it up because you've thrown it badly, or all these little things. And this is exactly why we do it. So that not only do we know we can do a distance or we can do a depth, but we can do it on a bad day with somebody tickling us, or with kind of something goes wrong. We can still do it. And then FIDS will never happen, because you'll just go, oh yeah, here we go. We've just got to keep going. Yeah. So it's literally the point of our training is we don't give you perfect circumstances. We give you, in some cases, especially if you go to Leatherhead, as you do, Darren, the circumstances are never going to be perfect. There's always going to be an Owen nicking your fin as you swim past, or the jets at the side of the pool that make you kind of go in a weird angle, and that means on the day that you're in the sea, or in the Red Sea, or in Greece, or wherever you're doing, it's going to be a lot easier because you haven't got those distractions. But if the distractions do happen, you can cope with them. So that's how I train with FIDS, and that's literally what the no tank sessions are based on. So Alethea says, what books, especially on freediving, do you recommend? Well, unfortunately, there isn't any that I would recommend. There's quite a few that are good, and if you get quite a selection, and you can pick out quite a few sections. Having said that, no. Breathe at the Depth by Guillaume Néry. Really nice book. I'm trying to get Arnaud to read it in French, because I'm not quite sure the translation's quite on it. But it's a really nice perspective of freediving. He doesn't talk about technique so much as his attitude. He doesn't talk about the physicality of the dives. He talks more about the emotions that go with the dives. So that's quite a nicely laid out book. So I would recommend that. They've got it on Amazon as an ebook, and you can buy it on guillaumenery.com. I think is his book. There must be a link on his website to buy it. I don't think the actual hard copy is available on Amazon. It is in French, so if you read French, go for it. Read the original. What I would suggest is, now let me go over to the library, the freediving library. So I would suggest this book. Okay, it's not necessarily about freediving particularly. It's a practical guide to, wait for it, I'm not going to say this very well because it's Japanese, Byotoko, breathing. Okay, so Patrick, the guy who wrote it, is the second kind of generation under Professor Byotoko, who came up with this breathing technique, and Patrick kind of puts a little bit more, makes it a little bit more, puts a bit of science into it, puts a bit of examples into it, and puts it a little bit more in layman's terms. So I would suggest getting that. That's a really, really good, interesting read. Yeah. Other than that, the other freediving books that are around are a little bit either sport orientated, or Umberto Pellizzari's is a little bit old. Umberto's book is very good. Have I got it to hand? The Manual of Freediving, it's up there somewhere. The Manual of Freediving. But my advice, if you buy the Manual of Freediving by Umberto Pellizzari, is he wrote a book that was this thick, and it's really good. It's a really good book. A little bit old now, but really good. But the publisher said, no, it needs to be thicker than that. So he kind of padded it out to this big with stuff that really kind of shouldn't be in a freediving book. So it's not, the stuff that shouldn't be there, it's not kind of bad. It's just irrelevant. So you can check that book out. That's good. But definitely, so 3 books. Why not? There you go. 3 answers. So Guillaume Neary's book, The Oxygen Advantage, and Manual of Freediving. Here's an interesting story for you. I think the Manual of Freediving came out in the late 90s, and I obviously had a copy. When I started diving, it was the only book out there, and I kind of bought the book. And about maybe 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, my dad was visiting family in Malvern, and they just kind of went, "Oh, do you want to go to the shops? We're just going to shops. Do you want to come with us?" Yeah. So he went in a charity bookshop, or a charity shop, looking at the books. And there was a copy of Umberto's Manual of Freediving. So my dad's like, well, I've got to buy this for Marcus. I've got to buy it for him. It's £1 or whatever it is in this charity bookshop. Bear in mind, my parents live in London, in South London. I live in South London. They were in Malvern, so this is a few hundred miles away, a couple hundred miles away. And he gets it home and opens it up, and there's a bit of paper in the front page with Marcus Greatwood and my telephone number. And somebody had given my number to the person who owned this book. I want to learn freediving. Oh, you want to contact this person? And they'd written my name and number, and it was in the front of the book. And this just made my dad's day. Absolutely just made his day. I was like, what? I just bought this book and it's got Marcus's name and number in it. So anyway, but there's more than 2 copies of Umberto's book in the UK, so you're safe. Okay. Kiri asks, reef, wreck, or swim through? Well, see, now this is a good question, because I decided on Sunday, so yesterday, I decided that we were going to categorise swim-throughs. And this was brought around by Julian, Freya. Julian and Freya are not a good mix. They do like level 3 swim throughs, and this is it. We needed to explain what swim throughs are. So there's 3 levels of 3 swim throughs, and Julian and Freya like level 3 swim throughs. And a level 3 swim through is one that you have to take your weight belt off to get through. Okay, that's tight. Okay, level 3, no thank you. Okay. So level 1 is something simple. No obstructions, you can see the way through. So that'll be, for those of you who've been to Vobster, the mid section of the plane, nice, big, round, like 2 meters high, 2 meters wide, about 3 meters long. So once you're in, and out you come. So that's level 1, where you can see the exit, no obstructions, simple. Level 1. Level 2 is where there is something that makes it tough. Okay? So it might be deep, it might be long, or it might, as we found at Wraysbury on Sunday, it's dark, like really dark, like dark. So on Sunday, particularly bad visibility at Wraysbury, and you could not see the exit until you were halfway through the tunnel. Okay, the tunnel of almost certain death. So that's level 2, and then level 3, yeah, that's where you take your weight belt off. Yeah, and yes, there is only 3. I made that decision that you could overcomplicate it with lots of levels. There is only 3. However, I understand that level 2, where there's something that makes it difficult, there's different varieties. So I'm waiting for Owen, who helped me come up with this level grading system, or Julian or somebody else, to start putting letters next to it. A little bit like climbing, where they have a number and then they have a letter, and they just keep adding letters to make it different. So maybe 2D is deep. It could be dark. Oh, V, 2V, visibility impaired. Okay, anyway, so swim throughs. I digress about swim throughs. There are 3 levels of swim through. Oh, come on, it's only a level 1. See, you can see it works. Don't do that. It's a level 3. Okay. So reef, wreck, or swim through. Well, for me, it's being there. And I would really say the excitement for me is finding stuff. Now, it can be finding something in Wraysbury that I've never seen before. That's quite exciting. But finding something that nobody's seen before, or very few people have seen before, is just off the scale. Just I can't put words into that. And it doesn't matter whether it's a wreck or whether it's a reef or a swim through. And I'm hoping that in the next 2 years that No Tanks, we've got a little bit of shift on the training now, which hopefully every single one of you who are watching now will be on the AGM tomorrow night. It's a Zoom meeting. If you want, the information's on the email that you should have got. If you didn't get the email, message me. I'll send you the link. Everybody's welcome. Members, interested parties, AGM, annual general meeting tomorrow night, and we're going to discuss this. So hopefully in the next couple of years, we're going to really try and amplify the exploration side of No Tanks again. A few years ago, we were doing a lot of exploration, getting ourselves into places that people haven't been before, and there you go. So that's in the next couple of years, we're going to be doing that, looking for wrecks, looking for reefs, and doing more swim throughs. And yeah, I mean, finding swim throughs is quite cool. Especially if you've been to somewhere a few times and you've never seen the swim through, and then you go, so can you find swim through? A bit like Mika's Magical Mansion of Mystery. We've been there several times and not seen it, and then all of a sudden we found it. Okay, so Alicia says, physiological aspects of what? Reef wreck and swim through. Is that answering Kiri's or finish off Kiri's question? I don't know. Okay. And well, look, Darren's actually asked a question about me, which is fantastic. I'm happy to talk about me. What got me into freediving? Well, it's a true story. I was traveling through Israel and down into Egypt with Sally. Some of you might know Sally. So we were traveling, backpacking. We were the whole point was that we were just going to do it on no money. So we flew to Israel, started kind of making our way down by bus and whatever down towards Egypt. And we had saved up enough money to have 1 week's scuba in Sharm, and we'd put that in a separate bank account. I mean, it was once you're there, it's like 200 quid. Okay, 200 quid for a week's, or 250 or something like that for week's scuba diving, and we'd kind of I've taught Sally. I nearly said free diving. Taught Sally scuba diving. So she was kind of a sports diver. And on our way down, we called in this amazing place called Dahab. That was just, we crossed the Taba border, the border crossing from Israel into Egypt at Taba, stayed in a wooden tent, which was bizarre, and went down to this place called Dahab. And it was £1 a night to stay in the youth hostel, £2 a night if you wanted a fan in your room. It was awesome. You had to share your room, okay, obviously with cockroaches, but that didn't bother us. And the food was incredible, and the beach was incredible. No hotels there at all. They were all just Bedouin camps, and the semicircle of the bay wasn't even a road. It was kind of a track with lights that every single cafe had wired up. Just had these cables running up, running their entire sound system and lights off the street lamps, the electricity off the street lamps. It was incredible. And I went snorkeling there and just saw the Red Sea for the first time. I mean, I scuba dived the Red Sea a couple of times, but that was the first time I really saw it. And I was just out there hanging around at the bottom, seeing fish, just incredible, absolutely amazing it was. There was quite a lot of scuba diving going on at the, or not quite a lot, a bit. People still had to travel there to get to Dahab to dive. You couldn't stay there and dive really at the lighthouse. So I went to the other end and the house reef, and it was incredible. Then we went down to Sharm and did our week scuba diving and didn't see nearly as many fish. And it was really busy and noisy and kind of, and we had to go on a boat and it was good. It was good. Don't get me wrong. Diving in Sharm is good, but the day we finished, we said, right, we're going back to Dahab for a week of snorkeling, and that was it really. I came back to England and looked up, snorkeling, or somebody had said to me, oh wow, you could do that free diving thing, and so I came back and looked up what free diving was, and I just bought a really expensive dry suit before going on that trip to do, or just after that, I think just after I bought a really expensive dry suit to do more diving in the UK, and I used it twice. Then I got a free dive suit and sold my dry suit. There you go. Whew. So that's what got me into freediving. So just literally the opposition, the opposite to the scuba experience I had in Sharm was in Dahab. It was beautiful. And Diane, okay, so Diane, you say that. I've been trying to write a book about freediving for years, for absolutely years. I've got 2 books in mind. One is with my photographs, which some people say I can take good photographs. And also I want a coffee table. I want a coffee table book of my photographs. So if any of you out there know any publishers or people who might be able to help me get my coffee table book off, then please you can have a free one lesson. You can introduce me to a decent person. And the second book I wanted to, and I still do, I've got a really good idea about training, the physiology and the ideas behind freediving. And again, I was working with Martin Taylor, and we got quite far. Money comes back to money. This idea that I had was just superb. Different take on it. I'm not going to say too much because it was such a good idea. And it comes back to money because I didn't want to just do a normal book. I wanted to do a special book. And as Kiri says, I have written a book. I've written several books. I've written 3 books on freediving. Very specific things about books about freediving, and you can buy them on Amazon. So you've got deep freediving. You've got the learning schedule, the training schedule. That's got an ISBN number. So they're books that I've written. So you can buy them. Buy them on Amazon. Deep freediving. I wrote Deep Freediving in 2010. Specifically to negate mouthfeel. So I looked behind myself then to see what where they were. I have got some somewhere of my books. So I really wanted to go into the physiology of how mouthfeel is dangerous and ultimately could kill you. And I so I wrote that in 2010. And it's still there explaining why mouthfeel. Right, what I don't talk about mouthfeel because it's horrible. I don't want to talk about it. But I talk about the physiology of deep diving, and from that you can see that why mouthfeel doesn't work. There you go. Okay, Kiri says this is only the second half of the tale. I can't remember what the first half of the tale is. Then, I mean, I've got lots of tales, but. Maybe that's my 3rd book. 3 answers. So that concludes the Q&A with 3 answers. The first answer is I have written a book. The second answer is I've got 2 books in the there's 3 books I'm going to write. The coffee table book, the one that really explains the joy of freediving, which I've got brilliant idea. And the third one is maybe I should just write a book about my stories. Who knows? So thank you very much for joining me for a Q&A. Some really good questions there. I'll post this up tonight. Hopefully see you tomorrow night for the AGM, 7:30 on Zoom. The link is in the email, but I can send it to you direct. I don't want to put it straight out on Facebook because it's really for members or people who are training with us. Wednesday night at Richmond Park, and if you're interested in an open water course, especially before Free Fest, which is in 2 weeks' time, let me know and maybe we can kind of sort it out. Okay, so thank you very much. This Q&A live stream is dedicated to my VW camper that's gone. It's moved on to a new owner, hopefully treating it as well as I did. But that's it. Thank you very much.